So, I did promise you Professor Seyed Marandi, Chair of American Studies at the University of Tehran. And I'm glad to say he joins us now. Professor, there's much to talk about in the region, but let's talk about your other speciality, America, first and foremost. I don't know if you heard my monologue, but in short, I was making the obvious point. I call it an obvious point, but a very large number of people seem to have missed it, that ISIS and Al-Qaeda have been, if they were not created by the West, and there may be an argument that they were, they have certainly been regularly and across the globe used by the West, only to discover yet again this day that the monster will turn on its owner, its patron, anytime it likes. Have I got that right?
I agree with you 100%. The United States, if they did not actually create ISIS and Al-Qaeda, and I think there's good reason to believe that they did, or at least they created it alongside their allies, then they strengthened them, whether in Afghanistan or in Syria or in Libya or in Yemen or elsewhere. They played a key role. And when they create the monster, just like the monster of Frankenstein, they lose control. And I don't know the circumstances of what happened hours ago in the United States, but in any case, I think it's fair to conclude that it is most probably an indirect result of their own policies. And these governments in the West, they don't learn. Because their interests are not in keeping their people safe. Their interest is in preserving the empire. Otherwise, they would not have been supporting Al-Qaeda in Syria. The Golani gang, they are Al-Qaeda. They were ISIS. He was the deputy head of ISIS, and he was the head of Al-Qaeda in Syria. And bringing him to power, and Western media collectively trying to create a positive image for him, they are doing an enormous disservice, not just to the people of our region, but to their own people in Europe and the United States.
The metamorphosis of the new Syrian leader, he's already said he'll be in power for 4 years before a single vote is cast, if one ever is. And if it is, how freely it will be cast must be in very serious doubt. But he has put on a suit. He has learned mysteriously to tie the knot on the tie in precisely the way of the English kings. Hence it's called the Windsor knot. I wonder who taught him how to tie it. He is making noises, taking pictures with the Catholic hierarchy and so on, that he does want national unity. That may or may not be true. I personally think it's not, but it may or may not be true. But it's a distinction without a difference, because the people who brought Golani to power are this alphabet soup of fanatic Takfiri groups, and he can't control them either.
No, he definitely cannot control them. And these groups, for the most part, have even failed to accept his offer to join the Ministry of Defense. And many of these groups are not even Syrian. And many of the people in some of the groups that are Syrian are not Syrian. So he is going to have a very tough time. If he takes a hardline approach, then Syria will revolt against him. And if he doesn't, his people or his allies or his rivals are going to take a tough approach towards the people. And we are already seeing that. While he is taking photos with different people from different parts of Syrian civil society, and while he's meeting foreign delegates, his gangs and rival gangs are carrying out massacres and killings across the country. They can't hide this. People are living in fear. Bodies are being found. The Western media, again, can pretend things are all fine. And sadly, some of the supporters of the Palestinian cause in Gaza who've become big fans of Al-Qaeda all of a sudden, they can pretend that everything is fine, but this is not going to work for very long. This reminds me about the time in October, the first month when the Israelis began their onslaught on Gaza. Every time they would massacre Palestinians, Western media would repeat Israeli claims that Hamas is attacking its own people, that Hamas bombed a group of people who were escaping to the south, that a missile misfired, a small rocket misfired and slaughtered hundreds of people in a hospital. For a few weeks, they were able to get away with these lies, basically because of the beheaded children lies and the rape lies. But after a while, when it continued, then the apologists of the Israeli regime could no longer control public opinion. And those people who are now becoming apologists of ISIS and Al-Qaeda and the other terror groups in Syria, for a period of time, they can fool public opinion and perhaps fool themselves. But this policy, this behavior, the character of these thuggish groups that have been slaughtering people for so many years, that's not going to change. And this is going to continue. And these people are going to, Western media will continue to discredit itself as they have over Gaza and elsewhere. But these people who've been supporting the Palestinian cause, they're going to discredit themselves because these images from Syria are not going to go away.
Now let's turn, can we, to Lebanon. The 60 days, which was inexplicably agreed to as a period in which there was a ceasefire, but Israel could come and go as it pleased, and it did come and go as it pleased. My own former father-in-law, so the grandfather of two of my sons, his grave was smashed and disturbed during the period of ceasefire by Israeli invaders. And his father, so my children's great-grandfather, his grave was unspeakably destroyed during the ceasefire, when Israel was still coming into Lebanon and doing anything that they wanted. That ceasefire is about to come to an end. That 60-day interregnum, rather, is about to come to an end. What do you think is going to happen there?
I think there's a very good chance that the conflict will begin again. I think there's a very high probability that there will be war, because Hezbollah has warned the Israeli regime and everyone that the occupation of any part of Lebanon will not be tolerated. But this also shows that Hezbollah was right all along. Those people in Lebanon who are influenced by Western embassies, who are funded by Western NGOs, or those fascist militias in Lebanon that were involved in the Sabra and Shatila massacre in 1982, killing 3,500 Palestinians and Lebanese. These people have been saying that Hezbollah should be disarmed and the Lebanese army should deal with the Israeli regime. But we see that the Lebanese army does not have the capability to deal with the regime. because the Americans and the Europeans will never allow the Lebanese army to be able to have the power and the strength to defend the country. Lebanon has no air defense capabilities. It has no air force. Why? Because the Americans won't let them have it. The Americans and the Europeans only want the Lebanese army to have the resources to be able to crush Hezbollah or to crush the resistance or Palestinians or whoever is a part of Lebanon itself. But the United States, the Europeans never will never allow the Lebanese government, at least in its current form, to be able to defend the country. So what we're seeing right now in southern Lebanon is the ceasefire is being violated, and the Lebanese army is not doing anything about it, or at least it's not doing what it's supposed to do. And the United States and those others who are supposed to be preserving the ceasefire, as usual, they're siding with the Israeli regime. And we all know that the Israelis can do whatever they want, and the United States and the West will condone it, support it, fund it, and even facilitate what it does.
Now, the incoming President Donald Trump famously and oftentimes repeated his command that the war in Gaza better be over before January the 20th. It's coming to the end of January the 1st, so soon it will be 19 days. There are no signs, are there, of the war in Gaza coming to an end. The Palestinian resistance continues to fight. Even with knives, they continue to fight. And the Israeli massacres, daily massacres, mainly of women and children, show no signs of letting up. How do you see that happening in the next 19 days?
Well, one thing that I think we have to always keep in mind is that Trump tries to create fear. That is his technique. And after the murder of General Soleimani, which it's his anniversary right now, he said that if Iran strikes back, that he will punish Iran and strike Iran. And Iran did strike back at the Americans, and they fired, I think, 12 missiles at the Al-Assad air base, and the Americans failed to intercept any of the missiles, and enormous damage was caused. Now, some may say the Iranian response was adequate, some may say it was not adequate. But the point was that afterwards, Trump refrained from striking back. Also, when the Iranians downed a very $200 million American drone that was flying over Iranian airspace, Trump didn't do anything. So I think while Trump should be taken seriously, the United States should always be taken seriously. It is a dangerous regime that has carried out war after war. But I think they do recognize that Iran is a very powerful force. And they do recognize that Hamas has enormous influence across the region. They recognize the power of Hezbollah, Yemen. And if Biden could have destroyed Hamas, if Biden could have destroyed Ansarullah in Yemen, if he could have destroyed Hezbollah or Iran or the resistance in Iraq, he would have done so. It's not as if Trump has any special powers that Biden did not have. Biden said he is a Zionist. Biden's national security advisor was a Zionist. He was a Jewish Zionist, and so was his Secretary of State. You can't get more Zionist than that. So I think that Trump, having all the problems that he has at home, economic, social problems, and even now the ongoing war within the MAGA camp, and the problems that he has in Europe with the escalation in Ukraine and with China and elsewhere, I think that his hands are pretty full. And he probably is not that ignorant not to recognize that if he pushes too hard, that it could blow up in his own face.